So next, I would like to invite the next presenter. I would like to invite the next presenter, Alexander S. Acosta, Philippine School, Doha State of Qatar. And the topic is about the art of research, advising the new direction of research, advising in a research by article format. So please welcome our presenter. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome you to this Cambodia First International Conference on Mentoring Educators. I am Dr. Alexander S. Acosta. I graduated from the University of Santo Tomas with my PhD. I am working here in Philippine School Doha for 18 years in the state of Qatar. I am also teaching in the graduate school program in the Philippine Christian University, EPM and Associates. My topic that I'm going to share with you is all about the art of research advising. This is my experiences where I share my way of advising to my graduate school students and even to our senior high school students. This is how I did, and I'd like to share with you my topic. Establishing a strong relationship between advisor and advisee is paramount in making the dissertation process work in any master or doctoral program. Dawn of 1998, the study of the experiences of the graduate school students who are not native speakers have collected all their sentiments and their articulations. One of those are, an Urdu-speaking graduate student said, if my advisor can read and correct or even rephrase the whole thing, I will learn how the same thing could have been communicated in a rather reflective manner. And a Korean graduate school student also expresses sentiments that I want my advisor to provide me with the newest research development and materials concerning my topic. And another one English native graduate school student complained that his or her advisor made nasty red marks anywhere. And one native graduate school student said, I want my advisor to be more specific in her comments, less judgmental, and to give me more freedom to write in my own style. These are the collective articulations of the graduate school students and their experiences with their advisor. And as research writing evolves, so our way of advising to our graduate school students. Some research advisors are not basically conscious about differences as well as similarities that the traditional monograph, thesis, dissertation writing, and research article writing. This is the new orientation that we need to know as advisor, how to advise following the research by article format. In the traditional monograph, thesis, dissertation writing, this is what we call a Germanic type, which is composed of chapter 1 to 5, while the research article writing, the standalone publishable format, this is a format acceptable for international publication, of which our way of advising should focus on. Confused advisors? Confused, my dear co-advisors? That is why Collins, Holland, Brown of 1991 discovered new direction of research advising through the so-called cognitive apprenticeship. This cognitive apprenticeship is establishing good relationship between students, graduate school students, and we as advisors, having four main aspects: content, methods, sequencing, and sociology. If we speak of content, this is how we, the advisors, and our advisee must know what possible work to do in doing the research work. This is where we identify the context of problematizing as the first attempt of advising our students. Then next would be the methods. The methods would be the advisor and the advisee must particularly identify what possible research methodologies or methods to be utilized in any particular research attempt. Then the sequencing, these are the orientation programs of which the advisor and the advisee must know as the schedule of the coursework to be dealt with or to be done while completing the research work. Next is the sociology. This is where the advisor must establish an intellectual stimulating environment wherein the environment of the advisor and advisee must be very conducive, must be highly intellectual. You may arrange a meeting with your advisee in a small room wherein the advisee can also have access to the different citations or references. The Germanic type of chapter 1 to 5, we advisors would tend to instruct our advisees to write starting from chapter 1 to chapter 5, and we immediately instruct our students to write chapter 1 at all, of which we do not know, or even the advisees do not know what to write in the introduction because they have not fully gained or discovered what to advise or what to write, sorry. But in the standalone publishable format, this is an acceptable format for international publication. This is where our art of advising would come in. In the standalone format, Gifali of 2003 have discovered an expanded method of how we start our way of advising. It is called a middle forward backward design, utilizing scaffolding, modeling, coaching, articulating, and exploring. I know all of us advisors are aware of these things, but how we do all these things in such a way that our advisees must not be able to gain a traumatic experience while they are with us, because research is a journey, and journeying with our advisees would be a very meaningful way of letting our advisee experience our relationship from mentorship to friendship at the end of your research journey. So I'll start discussing with you how to advise in the quantitative part. Let's start with the scaffolding. In scaffolding, of course, by the way we understand scaffolding, it is how we scaffold our graduate school student advisees to start our advising from problem first. We will let our advisors and we advisors to identify first problem, hypothesis, conceptual framework, survey questions, validation, review of related literature, protocols, and Gantt chart. Instead of advising our students, okay, you write chapter 1 of your topic, then we do not know, and even the advisors do not know what to write. So if we have the scaffolding part, of which you, advisor, and advisee will work together, then this is how we start our way of advising. The next would be the modeling. In the modeling, coaching, and reflecting part, the modeling is we have our own published article. Then we will present that to our advisee, and our advisee must go through it, must go over it, and try to also let him identify what are the findings that we or you being an advisee or advisors wrote in that particular published article that you have. Then model it to your advisor, model it to your advisee, sorry. And that is where you do the modeling part in writing the findings of the study. Then after that, in the discussion part, that is where you as an advisee and the advisor must work together through coaching. In the coaching is you teach the students, the graduate school student, to do this discussion with your guidance, with your wisdom. And that is where you work together. And after the discussion, then come with the reflecting or the reflect. In the reflecting part, allow the students first to sleep with the findings and the discussions with him or with her. And the following day or the next time or the next meeting you have, you will ask your students, okay, I want you to bullet first all the conclusions and the recommendations that you made. Then after that, in the reflecting part, the next time, the advisee will present the topic, the conclusions and the recommendations. And that is where you guide your students to also make the conclusions together with you. Then the next part would be the exploring. This is where the introduction, the methodology, the significance, and the definition of terms must come in. Imagine this is the fourth part of our advising, of which in the Germanic part, this is the first way of our advising. But here in this research by article, the fourth part would be the introduction, methodology, significance, and the definition of terms. And of course, the abstract, which is the articulating part, you will ask your students to write the abstract following either inductive or the descriptive format. Then from the abstract or the articulating part, of course, you have the research fine-tuning, the plagiarism check, and grammar check, and concept flow check. Then the last will be the references. In the qualitative part, this is still the same. In the scaffolding, you will just write, or you will just inform or orient your students that this is what we're going to do. We have to identify first the central question of your study. After identifying the central questions of your study, then we will present the sub-questions. We'll make the sub-questions and the protocols and the transcription of the data from EMIC to EDIC transcription. That is where we scaffold our students, meaning support our students. Then, in the modeling part, again, we have our own published article, give it to our students, allow our students to go through it, model your paper, and then the students would be able to examine and discover this is how we analyze the data. Then after that, allow the students to also reduce the data through a dendrogram. But in analyzing the data, lead the students from cool to warm analysis of your qualitative part. Then in the coaching, that is where you will be able to know whether the students are ready to identify the themes that emerge in the study. But at this time, you both work together, advisor and advisee, to come up with the emergent themes of the particular study. Then from the theme, you have the simulacrum. That is where the conceptual framework of the qualitative part, which is to be presented. But it takes a lot of brain for our advisee to do that without we advisor to coach our advisees. And in the reflecting, it is still the same. Allow the students to go through it. Let them sleep with their results, the findings, and the discussions. Then by making the conclusions, bullet them first before you go through it in a paragraph. And the exploring part, that is where the introduction, methodology, significance, and definition of terms will be asked by our advisees to do. Then, in the articulating part, the abstract, the inductive, and the descriptive format, you may choose. But for the novice advisees, allow your advisee to do the inductive part first. Then, if the advisee or the researcher knows the nitty-gritty of how to do the abstract, that is where you allow your students to do the descriptive format. Then the next would be the research fine-tuning and references. In the final paper, that is now the presentation of your article. In the final paper, that is where you go first, the discourse summary. You will present what is known in the field and what your paper adds. What is the novelty of your paper? It has to be presented in the final book of your dissertation. Because for the dissertation, the students must acquire at least 3 to 5 research by articles. And for the master program, the students must make at least 1 or 2 to 3 articles. And the chapter 1, it is the general introduction, the general purpose of the research, the literature review of the study, presentation of the central question, and a description of your research by article from chapter 2 to 5. Then the research design, the methods, selection of the study, data gathering procedure, interview procedure, the mode of analysis, and of course the references. In chapter 2, that is where your published article must be included, piece by piece. And then general discussion, that is where the generality of the research findings through a combined simulacrum. Then chapter 7, the general summary, it is where the researcher must present the philosophical application of the study, the general impression of the research about the study, the scholarly observations and opinions of the researchers, philosophical bold attempt of the researcher, the possible research attempt, and glossary of terms, words of gratitude. And these are the advisor's role. Advisor's role, you are committed to the education and training of the students. You should be knowledgeable of the requirements of the deadlines. You must determine the viability of the project and to ascertain how or she can best serve the student. You should meet one by one with student on their particular development. If your student, group them according to how they progress the research writing. If they are on the scaffolding part, group them in scaffolding, articulating, reflecting. And you must provide timely feedback rather than give nasty red marks, and should help the students to select a thesis committee if the university needs a thesis committee. You should provide a learning environment that is intellectually stimulating and supportive. You should consistently enforce standards and rigor of academic conduct. You have to determine that the thesis project is ready to be defended. And you also have the right to delay the thesis defense if you think that your advisee is not ready to defend, because your advisee is a reflection of how you give your advising to them. And I hope we are not part of this. The worst 5 traits of worst research advisor. The first one by Kelsky of 2014, the one who steals your work. If the advisor will steal the work, you are one of those worst advisor. And those who are inconsistent in making remarks. This advisor insists on one path of one action 1 week, and the next week insists on its perfect opposite. That means it shows that you are not ready to advise, and as if you are just pretending that you know the research, and you haven't gone through, or you haven't gone reading the whole manuscript. And those who are always making nasty red marks, those who are abusive and very negative and undermining just by telling recast. And then the advisee does not know how to recast because we do not give timely feedback. And then those advisor who are not around because he or she is very familiar.
Doctor, excuse me. So because all the time limitation, so sorry for interrupt your presentation and because of the time. So thank you very much for your participate in this conference and really sorry for the participants that
This is my last. The next time when you advise, just a piece of an advice, think bird by bird or small bites. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much for your meaningful presentation. So sorry for our participant because of the time limitation. So our speaker cannot answer your question. So, but doctor, can you privately reply to our participant question?
Okay.
Yeah. So now it's time to welcome our next.
I think you are muted.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much, doctor. You can have a break.